Most people are not overtraining, they are undertraining.
There we go, all the way to failure.
That's my failure, man.
You don't see any sign of effort in their faces, and you hear no sign of struggle out of their mouth. Why is training to failure important? A rep isn't just a rep. Not every rep yields the same type of results. There is something called effective reps. Effective reps are the last 5 reps before you hit muscular failure within a set. Whether you're doing 5 or 30 reps within a set, when those sets are taken to muscular failure, they all yield the same results. As the last 5 reps are the only reps that actually attribute something to your muscle growth. When looking at an effective reps graph, you can see that the effectiveness of every single rep compounds exponentially when you hit the 5 reps before failure or 5 reps in reserve mark. The closer you get to failure from that 5 reps in reserve mark, the more of a growth stimulus you get from every single set. But at the same time, every single set, when taken to absolute muscular failure, gives you also exponentially more fatigue. So why should you even go to muscular failure if you can just keep 2 reps in reserve and not accumulate as much fatigue as when the set is taken to failure? So as I explained, effective reps are the only reps that are actually important and that you should consider for muscle growth. And with training to failure, you can accumulate the same amount of effective reps with less sets. For example, if you do 2 sets to muscular failure, that would add up to 10 effective reps. On the other hand, if you do 3 sets, not to muscular failure, but with an extending reps in reserve scheme, doing 3 reps in reserve in the first set, on the second set 2 reps in reserve, and on the third and last set keeping 1 rep in reserve, like it is usually done. Doing 3 sets with keeping reps in reserve would only amount to 9 effective reps. You could argue that training to failure is more fatiguing than keeping reps in reserve, but at the end of the day, you can and you should do less sets when going to failure, which means that when you do 1, 2, or even 3 additional sets, even though you're keeping reps in reserve, the fatigue evens out. Even if you keep reps in reserve, the sets are still hard, especially on leg exercises like the squats, hack squat, RDL, leg presses and stuff like that. You have to get concentrated more often, you have to get psyched up more often. Because you're doing additional and more sets than when going to failure. If you stick to the same workout routine you're doing right now, subtracting 1 set from a plan going from 3 sets to 2 sets would literally save you 30 minutes in the gym. But if you don't actually want to save time but get more effective work done within a single workout, you could just do more exercises with the time you have saved. For example, for the same muscle group, you could either do 2 chest exercises with 3 sets, the incline bench press and a dip, or you could do 3 exercises, hit the chest from multiple angles, which would amount to the same type of volume. For example, doing an incline bench, a dip, and a fly. This will make sure that you're hitting the muscle from multiple angles, which you could argue that it can build the muscle more fuller, more dense. It builds general strength instead of you being just a master in one movement, and also tendon strength, which will keep you longer in the game and make you potentially more jacked. As avoiding injuries and training long-term for multiple years will yield the best results, whether your training is suboptimal, optimal, or whatever the fuck. The one who trains the longest with the right kind of intensity, focus and attention gets the best physique. Or if you're happy with the main workout structure, but you want to focus on the minor details of your physique, with the time you've saved, you can just add little isolation work like for the calves, the abs, the forearms and stuff like that. Training to failure also reassures you that you are giving it your all in every single set. For me, there's nothing as satisfactory, if that is even the word, like training to absolute muscular failure on every single fucking set. Like Arnold used to say that the pump is like coming for him, going to failure is for me. So training to failure isn't something that only Dorian Yates or Mike Mensa can do. Everyone can learn the skill of going to failure. I've been training to absolute failure on all of my exercises, whether it's a heavy compound or little isolation movement, and I can reassure you that you're not gonna injure yourself by training to failure. I never did. You're not just gonna be able to train 1 set per exercise, per workout, or for the whole week, because training to failure is so fatiguing, like Mike Mensa or Dorian Yates say. If you train to failure, you don't have to do low volume, just 1 set per muscle group. That is too extreme to one end. You want to be in the middle zone, do moderate volume, and push yourself hard. Don't overdo it with the volume on either side. Don't go too low and don't go too high. So you're not gonna die and not recover from 3 sets of a bicep curl just because every hit guy on the internet just does 1 to 2 sets on every exercise. And be sure that you are not gonna fucking die if you do 4 sets of calf raises to failure. Why should you keep reps in reserve or just do 1 to 2 sets because it is failure, bro? You cannot recover from more sets when it's a fucking calf raise. It doesn't make any sense. Also, there's no guesswork involved with it. You don't have to think if you kept 1 rep in reserve, 2 reps, 3 reps. You just gave it your all. You know that the work was done and that you will grow. Also, there's no overthinking involved, like when programming reps in reserve, as you have to periodize, use mesocycles, and use extending reps in reserve. Let's say in week 1, you do 4 to 3 reps in reserve, and after like 6 to 8 weeks, you reach a point where you can actually go to failure. For building strength, it is perfect, but if you want to just build muscle, it is just overthinking at that point. If you want to go down that route and you like that type of training more, I would highly suggest you to still train to failure for a period of time. First, need to learn how to grind for reps and what actual muscular failure feels like. How could you know that your set was 1 rep from reserve, 2, 3, 4, if you don't even know what actual muscular failure feels like? There's news you cannot know. And one of the best benefits, which don't even have something to do with the gym, is that training to failure teaches you about life. Failing in the gym is like failing in life. The more often you fail, the bigger and the better you grow as a person. If this video was valuable to you so far, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. There are 4 types of failure. 2 are good and 2 are bad for muscle hypertrophy. I will start with the bad ones. The first one is psychological failure. This is essentially just bitching out, oh fuck it burns, you can't push the set anymore. If you have not taken that set to the absolute end, even though it's burning, that set was absolutely wasted. The second one is systemic or cardiovascular failure. This most often happens when you're doing too high of a rep range or doing exercises that are just systemically or cardiovascularly fatiguing, like walking lunges or Bulgarian split squats. And when you combine those two and do high rep squats, 100% your system and your lungs will fail far before your actual quad muscle. You can easily overcome this by just choosing the right exercises and choosing the right rep range for that specific exercise. By doing those 2 things, you could just bypass it easily, but don't you fucking skip your walking lunges or Bulgarian split squats. Now I will go over the 2 type of failures which are good for muscular hypertrophy, which is local targeted muscular failure. This just essentially means that when you're doing a set of pull-ups, your back or your lats are actually failing and not your grip. If a supporting muscle is failing far before your actual muscle that you're trying to hit, it is no bueno, not good. If your lats are failing, not your grip on a pull-up, very good. Then there's technical failure. For this, you have to properly standardize your technique. You can always push the set beyond failure by going faster on eccentric and just yanking the weight instead of sticking to how you actually execute that movement and not changing your form too much. Of course, this can deviate to some extent, but you shouldn't go from a 4-second eccentric to a 1-second eccentric within a single set. So with technical failure, you can reach concentric failure, which has the best stimulus to fatigue ratio. This just means that the last rep you did was grindy as fuck, but you actually completed it. Then there's isometric failure, which is if you fuck up grinding out that rep and you get stuck in the middle of a bench press, for example, and the training partner has to help you, that is isometric failure. Then there's eccentric failure, which I would advise you to not do it at all. It just has a slightly better stimulus than the concentric failure, but the stimulus to fatigue ratio is just whack. Eccentric failure occurs when you can't even control the weight down and it crashes on you. So if you're considering this type of training, you should know when to go to concentric failure, when you should go beyond failure, or when you should stop and keep some reps in reserve. So you should go to concentric failure on most of your exercises, especially stable exercises like machine work, as those type of exercises don't accumulate as much fatigue as a free weight, for example, even if taken to failure. You have no stabilizing going on, no thinking, you can just ooga booga the weight. That's why bodybuilders switch to mostly machine work the closer they get to the bodybuilding competition and the leaner they get. As I said, it is less fatiguing. And I don't mean just little exercises like curls, triceps pushdowns, lateral raises, but also big heavy compounds that are machines like chest presses, machine rows, and stuff like that. Of course, you can also go to concentric failure on free weight exercises. I do myself, but I will go more in depth about that in a minute. Not stopping at failure, but actually going beyond is also beneficial in some cases. For example, with partial reps or slight cheating when exercises are shortened biased. You not being able to complete a rep on a dumbbell lateral raise, which starts at the top, and your actual muscle being the weakest when contracted. Essentially, you're just weak as fuck in that position. Stopping at that point would not be muscular failure, and you have much more reps in the tank when you incorporate partial reps or slight cheating. This is especially good and beneficial for smaller muscle groups, which don't accumulate as much fatigue as bigger ones, like the biceps, side delts, rear delts, calves, forearms, abs. For the triceps, you could argue that it is good, and surprisingly for the back, it is a game changer. When you look at back training, almost all exercises, if you're not using a fancy machine, are all shortened biased. When are you failing a rep on a pull-up or a row? In a stretch or in a contracted position? That is also why almost all of the old school greats, which had the biggest backs in history, incorporated cheat rows. But if you don't like cheating and you want to standardize your form, you want it to be nice and crisp, you can just do partial reps in the lengthen position if you cannot contract your back fully. So when can or should you stop and keep some reps in reserve? I don't say you should, but you can keep 1 to 2 reps in reserve when doing heavy free weight compounds. For example, the squat, the bench press, the deadlift, and stuff like that. For the most part, technical movements will be much harder to go to actual local muscular failure, as your technique will break down before that. So you could argue that going to concentric muscular failure, where you grind for the last rep, is even more beneficial on those exercises. This is also what I do, but I don't want you to die in a squat rack or break your back on a deadlift. So think for yourself a bit. And of course, going beyond muscular failure on the bench press or a squat with a partner assisting you or drop sets or shit like that, it's just beyond stupid, and you shouldn't do that. When it comes to the fatigue that you accumulate when pushing your body to its limits, just know that you're not gonna feel 100% great all the fucking time if you're trying to get as big as possible. Pushing your body and trying to maximize your muscular potential is an extreme sport in and of itself. Do you think that elite athletes feel great or recovered all the fucking time? It is absolutely normal and okay to feel a bit tired, a bit beat down if you push yourself in the fucking gym. It is not the fault of training to failure. If you feel fatigued and beat down, that doesn't always mean that reps in reserve could be the answer and that training to failure is overdoing it. If you push your body to its limits, in whatever endeavor, whether it's sports, the gym, life in general, trying to build a business or whatever the fuck, you will feel tired from time to time. It is inevitable, normal, and okay. So why just not give it your all on every single fucking set and train like a fucking maniac? This will reassure you that you will fulfill your muscular potential. You have given it everything you got. There is nothing more left within you. If you liked this video, make sure to watch another one right here.